How's it going, everybody? I'm Steve, and welcome back. So something really great happened yesterday, July 5th, 2025. Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne officially retired. Their last stage show ever. And it was a great day. It's actually like 10 hours of music. A lot of bands that were influenced by Black Sabbath performed. It was fantastic. I actually ordered the $30 pay-per-view. I didn't watch it live. I actually like watched it later after the show was officially over. That's when I actually started watching, which is really kind of late at night. It was like at like 10:30 at night. So I was watching it until like maybe like 3 in the morning, and I had eventually kind of stop. I actually, at one point, I think I stopped really at like when Tool performed. I think I stopped there, and then I flipped forward to see a little bit of like Metallica. Then I watched all of Ozzy and all of Black Sabbath because that's what the show really was about. So I really had to watch those bands, and I went back and watched the rest of the bands again, later on. But this is kind of fantastic here. Like just to kind of go through some of the bands here. Going through my phone here. Mastodon. I've heard some of their videos on YouTube. I'm really not real familiar with them, but I thought they were really great. They did that song Black Tongue was their first the opening song. They did Supernaut. I thought it was really good. They had Danny Carey from Tool actually came out, and actually they had these, like, I don't really know who the other drummers were. I see their names here, but I don't know who they are. But they had these three bands, and the other three drummers, and they're all kind of banging on a drum at that. But yeah, I really need to kind of investigate Mastodon a little bit more to find out more about them. But next up, I thought it was really interesting that Rival Sons were invited to do this. I think they've opened for Black Sabbath before, and I really like Rival Sons. They're really like more like a hard rock band. They're like more like Led Zeppelin were. Led Zeppelin's kind of like pre-heavy metal, sort of like really hard rock band, but not. They're really more like blues based, and so they were a little bit before Black Sabbath. But that's definitely a band that's like what they call proto metal. A lot of people were really influenced by them, but Black Sabbath. I think a lot of people would assume Black Sabbath they really were the like a first official first metal band really. Rival Sons, they did the song. They did the two of their songs. I thought they probably should have done like Electric Man, and should have done like Pressure in Time. I thought those are probably two of their best songs. They did like Do Your Worst, which I think is a really good song. Secret's really good. Thought it was really strange that they did Electric Funeral, and then later on, Pantera did the same song, which is kind of strange. I don't know if Pantera cleared that with Ozzy and Sharon. I know that obviously Zakk Wylde's in Pantera, so I would think that it wasn't something that they kind of snuck up on them. But it's kind of strange that you would see two bands do the same song in one night. But Anthrax was okay. They did Indians and Into the Void. I think Joey Belladonna. I've heard a lot of people say that he messed up the lyrics to like Into the Void. He's doing that. I don't know how prepared they were to do it. But, Hailstorm. I'm not a huge fan of Hailstorm. I should give them a fair shake. I think maybe check them out a little bit more. But I really like Lizzie Hale. I think it's the lead singer. I thought she was good. I like her as a vocalist. I've never really investigated that band too much. Lamb of God. I've seen Lamb of God like twice in concert. Yeah, and honestly, you can let me know in the comments. They've never really left a major impact on me. I think they're a pretty solid band. I just don't. I like clean vocals. I'm not really into the kind of like growl vocals. They're not like a lot of other bands necessarily, like death metal necessarily. But let me know in the comments what you thought of them. They did Children of the Grave. Then you had like these Tom Morello. I guess he put together these like super groups, and that was kind of strange. They had the Ultimate Sin. Lizzie Hale actually sang for that one. I thought Nuno Betancourt was actually pretty good. I'm a big fan of Extreme. Thought he was really good. And you saw Jakey Lee was late to the set. Lizzie Hale said, has anybody seen Jakey Lee? Just kind of strange. He wasn't ready for it. But and then they did Shot in the Dark. They had the singer from Disturbed, David Draymond, sang that. I think it was okay. I think the crowd kind of booed the singer from Disturbed. Was kind of strange, and I'm not really anything against them. I used to really be into like Disturbed a lot more back in the day. Not so much now, but they did Shot in the Dark. He had a Sweet Leaf. I thought David Ellefson was there from Megadeth, former bass player from Megadeth. That was cool. They had Believer. You had guys from Anthrax did that one. With Frank Bello and Scott Ian. And Changes, I thought Changes was kind of strange. They had the singer. There's a band called Youngblood, which I think I've heard them like once before. I thought that was like actually a pretty good cover of Changes. I thought the singer really got the crowd really into it. Kind of strange, kind of a slower song, got them into it. Then you had I really like Jack Black. He did the Mr. Crawley, which it kind of resembled like the music video where they had like the if you ever back in the day they had like the 4:3 screen ratio, and so it was kind of like a square box back in the day, and he was doing it. It looked just like the video, and he had this kid that was supposed to be playing the Randy Rhoads part, and Jack Black picked him up and like he does on the tribute album cover. So I thought that was funny. I'm a big fan of Tenacious D, so I can follow a lot of these bands. I know quite a few of them. You have Alice in Chains. They did. I thought Jerry Cantrell's vocals, his microphone was a little bit off. He did like the Man in the Box. He had that kind of a like the voice box thing that kind of like Sweet Emotion from Aerosmith, and it had that thing. But when he was doing his backup vocals, you could barely hear him. So I'm not sure if there was a problem with his mic. They did Fairies Wear Boots. I thought it was pretty good. Gajora is a band I'm not really familiar with. I think I've seen them live once before. They did a kind of a rare song called Under the Sun from Volume 4. Let me know if you're a fan of them. They've never really left an impact on me. Like I said, I like clean vocals, so it's not really my thing necessarily. And then you had like the Supergroup B came out later. You had you had Sammy Hagar came out and sang, and he did the song "Flying High" again. And I heard something like 2 or 3 weeks ago that he wanted to do "No More Tears," and I think they told him that Ozzy was going to do that song, so he decided to do "Flying High" again. And then Ozzy never did "No More Tears." And I'm not sure why that changed, and I'm sure Sammy had already prepared for to do "Flying High" again, so they just kept it the way it was. But I thought it was strange. I'm a big fan of Ghost. When they had Papa Five came out and sang "Bark of the Moon." I think his he wasn't quite able to hit those high notes on "Bark of the Moon." Like I said, I like Ghost. I just thought it didn't really quite work very well. And then you had like Steven Tyler from Aerosmith came out, and just did like Train Kept It Rolling, Walk This Way, and then he did a Led Zeppelin song. He didn't even bother to do like an Ozzy or Black Sabbath song. But I'm a big fan of Aerosmith, especially like 70s Aerosmith. So I'm okay with that. I can deal with that. He's more of like a contemporary kind of a vocalist. So he was out there with Aerosmith around just a little bit after Black Sabbath back in the 70s. So I can deal with that. And then you got Pantera. I thought they were pretty good. Like I said, they did Planet Caravan, and they did Electric Funeral. Like I said earlier, they did that song again. I thought that Cowboys from Hell and Walk. I thought they were pretty solid with Zakk Wylde playing guitar, and they've got Charlie Benante on drums. So I was okay with that one. And then Tool came out, and that's when I said I actually stopped watching and kind of fast forwarded a little bit. And then later on, after I watched after I watched Ozzy and Black Sabbath, I watched the Tool set, and I thought they were pretty good. Just watched it on YouTube later. They did 46 and 2 and Enema, and then they did a really great cover of Hand of Doom. Thought it was fantastic. And then actually before shooting this video, I actually watched the Slayer set, and I thought they were solid. They did Wicked World. I thought the Slayer songs that they did were fantastic. Disciple, War Ensemble, South of Heaven, Raining Blood, and Angel of Death. I thought it was fantastic. So Slayer was Slayer. That's what they do. That's what they do. And then Guns N' Roses, I watched earlier today. And I thought they weren't that bad. I just thought that Axl's vocals were kind of a little bit off. Like he was kind of ahead of the band. Like when he was singing, I don't know if it was maybe a PA issue. He's got the monitor he can hear in his ear there, and maybe he just couldn't sync it up. But it was strange. They did "It's All Right," which is like starts off with a piano, and then they did "Never Say Die." Junior's Eyes, really kind of obscure song. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, really great. And of course they did "Welcome to the Jungle" and "Paradise City." And then Metallica was great with "Hole in the Sky." I thought that was a fantastic cover that they did. I thought that was really great. But then they did later on they did "Johnny Blade," which is from the song. It's from the album "Never Say Die," and it's like nobody in the building knew what that song was. I've heard that song even just like last year when I bought like all the Black Sabbath's discography. I knew that song just from hearing that, and so I when I heard it, I was like, that sounds really familiar, and I had to kind of look it up, and I thought, I think that's a song from Never Say Die, and sure enough, that's what it was. But they, the Metallica songs that they did, Creeping Death, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Battery, and Master of Puppets, I thought were fantastic. And then you had Ozzy. Ozzy, came out. I knew he was going to be, sitting the whole time. I thought his vocals were pretty good overall. I don't know, Mr. Crawley. The S Solution. I'm not even gonna say that word. YouTube doesn't like it. But Mama, I'm Coming Home. I thought it was a great song. Crazy Train. So that was solid. Like I said, he was supposed to do No More Tears, but he didn't. So, but I thought the songs he did were pretty good. And then of course Black Sabbath was the last act, and they did War Pigs, NIB, Iron Man, and Paranoid. A lot of people thought that they probably should have finished the show with the actual song Black Sabbath from the first track from the first album. They didn't do that. Some people kind of complained about Bill Ward. Maybe he wasn't quite as on his game necessarily, but I give those guys a pass. They're all in their 70s. Just amazing that they're able to even play anymore. I thought Geezer Butler looked really kind of. I barely recognized him with the gray hair and the gray beard, but I thought Tony Iommi was pretty solid. Ozzy was solid with that act too. Just he had to keep his voice in check, and so I thought overall it was a great show. It was a great way to kind of end the band's legacy, and obviously they're iconic band that we've all grown up on. So many bands have been influenced by them. Even bands that aren't really like metal necessarily, some different genres, different types of subgenres of metal have been into them. Some punk bands have been into Black Sabbath, and so overall, it's a band that's reached so many people, and that's so great. So many people have started bands because of Black Sabbath, and so back in the day, Soundgarden had very much a sound like Black Sabbath. So I thought it was fun. I was glad. I was glad I bought the pay-per-view, even though today I watched a lot of stuff on YouTube, which I pirated stuff from the show. But I thought it was solid. Let me know in the comments what you thought of it. Let me know some of the stuff you really liked, some of the stuff you didn't like. And everybody, please, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider doing that. And everybody have a great one. Thank you.